Hello and welcome. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. My name is Helen Taylor and I'm the Technical Director of 0 to 5 Food Industry Centre at Cardiff Met University, and I will be your host for today's session. I am joined by two colleagues who will be sharing information with you. Bonnie, the Scheme Development Manager from SALSA, and Richa, who is the Senior Global Standards Manager for Food and Start. Please feel free to use the chat to ask us questions as you're listening and watching the webinar, but please can I ask you to stay on mute for the duration. Thank you. We have collaborated over the past 12 months in a quest to define a practical roadmap for smaller businesses to adopt to help them select the appropriate food safety scheme, SALSA or BRCGS Start Intermediate. We have put together a series of 3 webinars for you to attend to support your decision. In session 1 today, both Bonnie and Richa will give you an overview of each scheme from the scheme owner's perspective. The second session, Practical Steps, I will share the outcomes of research which has been completed with small businesses to define practical tools for you to use to help you make the right decision for your business and answer the question, SALSA or BRCGS Start Intermediate. And finally, the third session, we will invite a company to share their experience of transitioning from SALSA to BRCGS Start Intermediate with you. They will present some of the challenges and barriers they have overcome in their journey. The roadmap is simplistic. For small micro businesses, the first step in the journey will be via the SALSA standard, and this will develop a strong framework for the business, being holistic and generic in its requirements. When the time is right for the more established business, it then may decide to build upon the already established food safety scheme in place with the more prescriptive requirements of BRCGS Start Intermediate. And finally, the transition will take place when a business is fully mature and will be able to meet the detailed and comprehensive requirements of BRCGS food safety. I'd now like to invite Bonnie to share her views of this regarding the SALSA scheme. Bonnie.
Thanks, Helen. SALSA was founded over 10 years ago. We've grown year on year and have become a well-established scheme with over 1,800 members. It was recognised at the time that the BRC Global Standard was not necessarily achievable for smaller suppliers. As smaller producers make up a substantial percentage of the UK food and drink market, space was identified for a more appropriate alternative that would better enable UK buyers to increase their range of local food and drink. The SALSA scheme was set up as a joint venture between 4 founding industry partners: the NFU, National Farmers Union, Food and Drink Federation, FDF, UK Hospitality and BRC. As founding partners, BRC contributed to the setting up of the scheme, and the intention was always that SALSA would be seen and used as a stepping stone for those businesses planning to achieve higher level accreditation. This new joint project is exciting because it allows us to build on these foundations and develop a tool together that will directly benefit transitioning businesses and encourage continuous development within the industry. And the last bullet there, the IFST, the Institute of Food Science and Technology, have a critical role in operating the scheme and ensuring the professional skills and competencies of SALSA's auditors and mentors. And it's through our national network of auditors and mentors that we support food and drink businesses on the ground. As discussed, SALSA was developed as a scheme especially for the UK's smaller producers. The UK is home to a thriving food and drink industry where we have lots of entrepreneurs, lots of innovation and many niche producers, together with really long-established traditional and artisan suppliers. We're really proud to represent many of them, and there's no such thing as a typical SALSA member. We have huge diversity, from husband and wife teams in small units to bigger food factories with much larger teams, and everything else in between. We also know we have members with lots of ambition for their business. This is why the project with BRCGS Start is so important. So we can help those that want to move on to the next stage, providing a structured approach to achieve full BRCGS certification. So, a scheme, not only a standard. This is very important to SALSA, and we'll learn a little bit more about this later on. The SALSA standard encompasses all legal requirements in terms of food safety and goes beyond in many cases. What's key to the standard is that it's designed with flexibility and is more open to interpretation. This allows the smaller food and drink businesses to implement practices, procedures and paperwork that's proportional and appropriate to the scale of their operation. We're also able to give advice, explanation and guidance at audit, leaving businesses with clear instruction on how to comply with the SALSA standard. As part of the scheme, SALSA provide a range of support and resources to help businesses implement the SALSA standard. And we also provide face-to-face mentoring through our IFST-approved network of technical professionals, matching the right local expertise to local businesses. And the last 2 points, affordability and not-for-profit, are interrelated. Both these points are critical to how the scheme operates. Because we support smaller producers, we have to be affordable to them. And whilst there are costs to becoming SALSA approved, we work very hard to ensure we are accessible to the businesses we're looking to support. We're also self-funding and not-for-profit. This means that we're in a position to provide a service to the industry that's based on improving food safety standards and practices amongst the UK's smaller food and drink producers. This service includes helping and supporting businesses as they grow and in their journey towards higher levels of accreditation so that they can supply bigger customers further afield. I'll now hand over to Richa to talk about BRCGS Start.
Thanks, Bonnie, and welcome everybody. So to talk about the BRCGS Start program, this program was first of all launched alongside issue 7 of the food standard under the name Global Markets Program. And with the launch of issue 8, it was revamped and renamed as the START program. So it is a historic program that we did have in place for quite a while. As you might know, this program is modeled on the GFSI Global Markets scheme and is suited for companies that are either new to BRCGS global standards for food safety or are in the process of developing their food safety system. The START program is aligned to GFSI global markets, as I said, and this was developed to complement the standard as you know, considering when the certification is developing, the standard continues to grow. But we at BRCGS recognize that it's really important to provide opportunities to recognize and encourage the development of food safety systems in smaller sites, where full requirements of the standard may not be applicable, practical, or add any value, and in sites that are still developing their quality and food safety management systems. To enable this, we have certification against the START at 2 different levels. So firstly, the basic, and second, the intermediate. Now, in regards to us working with SALSA, the collaboration is aimed at SALSA sites being equivalent to a little bit higher than the START basic program. But one of the key advantages of the SALSA program, as Bonnie's already explained, is the mentorship program. So with the mentorship, smaller sites new to the certification schemes would really benefit a lot in regards to understanding how certain systems are established and how certification can be achieved. So as I said, within the UK market especially, we are looking at the intermediate level that would provide as a very key clear-cut stepping stone for sites that have reached that level and would like to progress further and look at BRCGS food standard. However, the step is still considered to be quite a bit significant, and therefore the intermediate level has been introduced as well. So with regards to the requirements, the way they are established, requirements at the basic level are designed to ensure a minimum legal compliance. They match or exceed the requirements of the equivalent GFSI Global Markets Program. At intermediate level, they are quite a bit more detailed. We build upon the legal compliance as well as start exploring the expansion of your HACCP programs, eventually leading to the development of a full-fledged documented quality management system. Again, these requirements at intermediate level match or exceed the GFSI Global Markets Program. What you would notice is the requirements, they are numbered and according to the relevant clause in the food safety standard. What this does is it helps the sites to identify those areas that need considering when moving from SALSA to the intermediate level and then again upon to the full certification. It does, however, mean that you would notice gaps in the clause numbering. This essentially is where the clauses from the food standard are not really applicable at that level and do not apply. The standard has seen a 30% year-on-year growth, and currently START is being implemented across 21 countries. So as I suggested before, the START standard at the basic level is aimed to provide a global solution for small businesses, essentially. And within the UK, we would say that SALSA is a really strong scheme in supporting smaller businesses to develop and flourish under a mentorship program. And again, once they are ready and they are looking at the next step, that's where the intermediate program might step in. So just to put it all in perspective, what we have is the basic level equivalent to the SALSA scheme. Within the UK, SALSA would be the way to go. And once you are at that step and you're looking to move further, as Helen's already suggested, within the next webinar, we will be introducing some tools that would support the sites to make that transition a little bit easier and explain what sort of the next steps for the site would need to be. And finally, from intermediate to full, the standard does the gap analysis for the site already, so you can look at the areas that you would need to focus on and consider. And now I would like to hand it back over to Helen.
Thank you, Bonnie and Richa. This slide represents a typical sort of process that a business would need to consider when deciding which direction they want to go down, whether it's SALSA or BRCGS. Both standards and both schemes provide the same sort of elements. So the audit process, there's an element of support and guidance, and then the recognition in relation to certification and directory. I think the key points I would want to make here is that, as Richa said, the SALSA scheme provides that additional support and guidance through the IFST mentoring approved team, which is unique to the SALSA scheme. For those companies starting the journey on food safety management systems and developing their due diligence systems, this is an ideal place to start. The scheme owner as SALSA will help with the audit process and ensure all the staff, and going through the support and guidance. And at the end of the audits, both BRCGS and SALSA have a directory, and they both are accessible for buyers and for other stakeholders in the food safety supply chain. With BRCGS START, the actual standard is audited through a third party, delivery partner, which is different to the SALSA scheme. So I wanted to flag those two different sort of differences between the schemes. But all of the other parts of the process are quite similar. Again, moving on to some more detail regarding the SALSA standard and BRCGS start. If you look at the left-hand column, it describes some of the key parameters for SALSA. So if you look at SALSA, the approach is a holistic, it's quite a generic standard, and it's proportionate. So for those smaller businesses who are starting on their food safety scheme journey, in the UK, this is an ideal place to start. And together with the mentoring that's available, it enables that holistic approach to be implemented. With regards to the amount of clauses and requirements that are in the standard, there are 103 of those. And those 103 clauses are captured in 4 specific groups. So you have the prerequisite controls, so everything from cleaning, internal audits, from training, personal hygiene, etc. You obviously have HACCP as a legal requirement regarding, food safety, hazard analysis, etc. Then the third element would be the management systems and documentation, ensuring you have your complaint system in place, ensuring you have full traceability forward and back, ensuring that you have a strong incident management system, product recall and withdrawal. And then finally, the fourth area would be the premises, the facilities that you're manufacturing your food and drink product in. It actually gives some context and framework around what's required from the premises. And then finally, the duration of the audit for SALSA is approximately a half-a-day audit. So in comparison, when you look at BRCGS start and you look at the intermediate level for the UK, if you're going to transition from SALSA to BRCGS start intermediate, what you will find is that the clauses or the requirements are less generic and more prescriptive. And as a business, you would have to comply with those specific requirements. As I said before on the previous slide, the difference with BRCGS Start is that a third party will complete the audit. So they will verify you conform with those requirements of the intermediate clauses. What's also different here is obviously there are more clauses to comply with. So if you want to comply with BRCGS Start, those specific clauses, there are 158 of them. And as Richard described, the actual standard itself is color-coded, and you have 72 basic clauses and 86 intermediate clauses. And a point to make here is that if you are intending to look at the intermediate standard, you would have to comply with the basic requirements as well. So you have to comply with all of the clauses, the 158 clauses. Now, within the standard, there are sort of a number of sections. You've got senior management commitment. You have, again, the HACCP or food safety plan section. You have a food safety and quality management system, which is similar to the SALSA section. You have site standards, which is obviously looking at utilities, services, premises, fabrication, etc. You're looking at product control. You're looking at new product development within that. And then you're looking at things that in process control, things such as sort of calibration, the way that the manufacturing process is operating. The next section that I'm going to just briefly describe is personnel. So within that personnel section, you have training, you have personal hygiene, medical screening, etc. Similarly to the clauses that are in SALSA within the prerequisite controls section 1. And finally, you have a high risk, high care section. And what BRCGS have done is they've actually pulled all of the key requirements. So if you're operating in a manufacturing company, that is producing a high risk, which is a ready-to-eat product with no no further processing, or high care area. So, for example, an ice cream or ambient high care, they have pulled all the requirements out and put them in one section, which is a really good move for issue 8. So those are basically some of the differences. The last difference would be the amount of time that an auditor would take to complete the BRCGS Start Intermediate audit. If you look at the audit duration there, the basic will take 1 day, but intermediate could take a day or a day and a half. And that is calculated or determined based on the size of the business, the complexity of the product portfolio, the complexity of the processing environment, the number of HACCP plans, etc. So this slide here just gives us a very quick overview of the similarities and the differences, I suppose, between SALSA and BRCGS Start, and particularly for the UK market intermediate, but globally, you know, in general, where we are. So, of course, why do you want to think about transitioning to the next stage? Richa described this ladder infographic previously on previous slides, and as we know, we're looking at BRCGS Start and SALSA standard as equivalent. But as your business develops and as it grows, there may be new opportunities that you would want to take advantage of. And depending on who your customer base is, or if you want to export, they may require that you move from one standard or one requirement to the next. So it may be that they want you to move perhaps from SALSA to BRCGS, the full standard. However, that journey would be quite onerous and quite complex and challenging for many businesses. So to take the opportunity to move perhaps to the intermediate level may be a step which can be sustained, and you can develop your systems, understand the new requirements in more detail, and embed it into your business. So it will enable perhaps that move, that transition, for you to take advantage of those new opportunities. It will enable you to move into perhaps a global directory. Obviously, SALSA has a directory that's UK, which is accessible, but that directory will be accessed globally. It's the BRCGS Start standard is accepted by sort of global buyers as well. And of course, you've got the marketing opportunity for both SALSA and BRCGS. It depends where you want to sell your product and how you want to develop and grow your business. But both schemes will ensure there is confidence in your food safety supply chain, and there's confidence in your food safety management system and the way that you're managing your business. And above all else, the schemes will ensure that you are protecting your business, you're protecting your brand, you're protecting the customer, and you're protecting the consumer. So it leaves me to thank you. I would like to thank Bonnie and Richa for sharing their overview with us and for your attendance at today's session. We hope you found it useful and informative. If you have any questions, please contact the scheme owners. We look forward to you joining us for our next session, when I will be discussing the tools for transition in more detail. We have had quite a few questions. For those who don't know me, I'm Helen Taylor, and I'm the Technical Director at Cardiff Metropolitan University Food Industry Centre, and I've been working with the scheme owners to review and pull the tools together that we're going to be talking about in the next session. So I would like to ask Bonnie and Richa to unmute themselves. Can we see you on the system? Hello, good morning. I have a question here, and I'm going to ask Bonnie the question first. How long does it take to become certified to SALSA, Bonnie? And then I'm going to ask the same question to Richa.
Okay, hi everyone. Hello, hope you enjoyed the presentation. So I would say as a really rough guide, it usually takes businesses up to around about a year, but anywhere in between. As I explained earlier, we've got a really diverse membership, so a one-size-fits-all guide is really difficult to give. But if you're producing from commercial premises, have staff to take ownership of implementation and a good knowledge of the fundamentals of food safety management, you'll be ready sooner. And of course, by making use of the scheme's resources, then you can often speed things through. But it's much better to take your time and work through the standard methodically and make sure that you've got the right foundations in place. So yeah, around about up to a year, but everybody's different.
Thank you, Bonnie. Richa, would you like to give us your thoughts on compliance or certification to BRCGS START, please?
Pretty much just sort of like repeating. Hello, can you hear me? Sorry.
Bit quiet.
Bit quiet. Okay, let's.
Oh, that's better.
Okay, hi. Sorry. So a bit similar to what Bonnie's just indicated, there's not one size fit all situation. So when businesses are ready, essentially they can either get a gap analysis done by the certification bodies, and they can come and indicate how much time a business might need. Or the other thing is, if they think that they can do a gap analysis themselves, then by all means. One thing to bear in mind is, from a BRCGS perspective, there needs to be minimum 3 months worth of paperwork, record keeping, essentially, that the auditors would need as a bare minimum. So whenever the businesses think they are ready to take that next step, do the preparations, but just make sure there's enough records for the auditors to come in and assess and make that judgment call and be in a position to issue a certificate, because at the end of the day, that's primarily, I think, the basis of why businesses would go in for a certification audit. But essentially, very similar to what Bonnie said, it does take a long time sometimes, but how ready and how prepared the business is, it'll really depend on that.
Richa, thank you. Bonnie, would you like to confirm how much data a company would require in terms of evidence for a SALSA audit? Because obviously Richa's given that for BRCGS.
Yeah, so we require 8 weeks of records, which is usually achievable, but clearly for startup businesses, they have to provide 8 weeks.
Lovely, thank you. The second question, this comes from somebody. I'm not SALSA approved. Do I need to be before I can do the SALSA START program? Bonnie, would you like to address that question?
So I think the short answer to that is no. Whilst SALSA offers a really good stepping stone, I think it's clear that some businesses may just want to go to full BRCGS or START intermediate. But yes, as said, we very much hope that the route map approach and the toolkit that we'll provide will give businesses that stepping stone approach. I don't know.
Richa, any comments on that? Yeah. Richa, do you have a comment on that? Sorry.
No, absolutely. So in regards to sort of, I think what certification schemes in general, essentially, they work very similarly. So yeah, there's not much to add here.
Okay. Thank you. Richa, one for you, I think, this. Is START GFSI benchmarked? And will it be recognised if we would like to export?
Right. So very interesting question here. In regards to the benchmarking, GFSI has not published a benchmark for the Global Markets Program. Therefore, the standard's not GFSI benchmarked when it comes to START. However, the standard is accredited. So it is an accredited version of the standard because it's based on the food standard. When it comes to export opportunities, we have had feedback from START users that yes, it is being readily accepted when it comes to export markets. But then again, what our suggestion would be, it's a fairly new standard, so it's still quite fresh in the market. Please do double check with your customers.
Okay. The next question I'd like us to look at is, it's one for Bonnie. Bonnie, I want to implement SALSA first. How do I go about this?
Okay, so the first step would be to register on the SALSA website, and then you can download the SALSA standard for free. You can use this to work through methodically to get a sense of how close you are to meeting the requirements of the standard. Then once you join the scheme, you can access the library of online guidance, which sits behind each of the requirements of the standard to help you implement. These guides, they include sort of enhanced explanations of why the requirement exists and why it's important, template documents and worked examples. So really all you need to understand and to implement the requirements of the scheme. And of course, there's always the additional mentoring support that's available through our IFST cohort that can help you do that more in-depth preparation. I think that if you've got any questions about SALSA implementation, we'd always encourage you to talk to us. So if you need any guidance or help on the next steps for you, then please give us a call or email, or follow us on social, and then you can keep up with industry news and information and further guidance.
Okay, thanks, Bonnie. Okay, I think this is a question for both of you. So we'll go to Richa first. How do I know if I'm ready to take the next step towards START or even full BRCGS, Richa? Hello. Question for Richa.
I'm really sorry, I've had some network issues there. I do apologize.
I thought you left me then, Richa.
No, absolutely not. And I do apologize even for the previous question. I'm not sure at what point my network just gave up. But sorry. So Helen, could you just repeat the question again?
Okay, sorry, Richa. Yeah. So the question is, how do I know if I'm ready to take the next step towards START or even the full BRCGS food safety standard?
Right, without giving away much of the content for the next webinar, which I'm assuming that Helen wouldn't be really happy about, that there's a lot of background work and research that Cardiff Metropolitan University have completed, and that will be presented in the next webinar, essentially, where we would share the experience of how the university has gone about understanding SALSA business and when are they ready. But ideally, what you would know is once sort of like your business becomes too big and you are at that stage where essentially SALSA has supported you on that journey, you've had the mentorship, but now you're looking for the next big thing. So where you are very comfortable with the processes, operations that you've implemented, and now you as you would know, when it comes to certification, if you're ready for the next hurdle, that's where you just go in. Or perhaps you are looking to supply into certain retailers, you want to increase the business, you want to move into the next big facility. So these are sort of the natural indicators, essentially, we would say. Again, no right or wrong time. Sorry, finishing up. So it's like there's no right or wrong time for businesses to move up front, sort of like to the intermediate level. But these are the indicators, essentially, in our opinion.
Bonnie, have you got any additional comments to make on that?
No, I don't think so. I think Richa's captured it really well. Just to say, watch this space for the next webinar where we'll talk through the detail.
Yeah, and it would be my pleasure to share that research and information with all the people who are attending now and any more that want to join us. And that should really help individual business to understand the indicators in more detail and to understand the key things that they need to have in place to undertake that transition from SALSA or BRCGS start basic through to intermediate and beyond. So I look forward to the next session, sharing that with you. Question next. For both of you, so we'll go to Bonnie next. How well received is the SALSA programme? How well received are the two programmes, so SALSA and BRCGS? Start.
Okay.
So SALSA for you, Bon.
Thanks, Helen. The SALSA standard is recognised by buyers across the UK. It's been developed with them specifically for smaller producers. And producers obviously become approved by having a successful audit to our standard. So in answer to the question, the scheme is well received and recognised. It's well used out there in the industry. But I think it's clear that as businesses grow in scale and supply, both by volume and geographically, that buyers will want to see progression in terms of food safety management within that business. And that's really where this project comes in, to help those businesses who are looking to take the next steps.
Thank you, Bonnie. And the same question for you, Richa, in terms of the how well received is the BRCGS Start programme?
Absolutely. So as I said at the very beginning of the presentation, START is just a reincarnation of our global markets program. And it was very well received with issue 7, with the issue 8, because we went with a name change. The industry is of the opinion that it's a new program, although it isn't. Global markets was very well received in certain countries of the world. Namely, our biggest market was in Turkey. Now, with the relaunch of the START program, the acceptance is going far and wide. Usually the case with our standards is we do make sure that the retailer specifies, everyone's made aware of when a new program comes about. Acceptance, including within the UK and internationally, is increasing. So there are some ongoing projects globally with certain specifiers, certain retailers, and the acceptance is coming very quickly, which is great news. And currently, again, with wherever SALSA supported, it is being recognized equally within the UK as well as internationally. But as we've said, when it comes to the program, in the UK, we're not looking at competing at all with SALSA. We think it's a brilliant scheme. The mentorship program is absolutely amazing, something that really adds that extra value to it. However, with the international realm is where BRCGS basic program goes out. We have provided a solution for smaller businesses, essentially. So yeah, recognition is coming quickly.
Thank you, Richa. I think it's really important as well for those businesses who perhaps aren't in the UK to realise that the SALSA scheme is established for micro and small businesses within the UK with over 1,200 members, and obviously the START programme is complementary to that and is seen potentially as an evolution for those businesses as appropriate. And as I said, I'll be discussing that with you guys in the next webinar. Thank you both for that. Okay, another question. Obviously, we're going through a global pandemic at the moment, and I think everybody's lives have been turned upside down. And when we're looking at food manufacturing, auditing, third-party auditing, there's been some changes. So the next question is, can START or SALSA audits be completed remotely? Shall we go, Bonnie, with you first, please?
Yeah, thanks, Helen. So the short answer is yes. SALSA are currently offering a document review by remote assessment. We still really believe for our sites, smaller food businesses, that there is a need for an on-site visit. But with remote assessment document review, the time on site can be very much reduced or deferred until it's safe and practical to do so. So yes, we are offering remote assessment, but we're also still conducting on-site visits. As you might expect, subject to a COVID-19 risk assessment and protocol. So by having the different options, we're hopeful that we've created a system that's flexible enough to allow choice for businesses depending on their individual circumstances.
Great, thank you, Bonnie. Richa?
Yeah, very similar to the SALSA scheme. Short answer, yes. Long answer could be a little bit. Yeah, it would need a little bit of an explanation. But essentially what happens is with START or any of the BRCGS schemes, we do prefer on-site visits when it comes to the very first audit. However, considering the global pandemic we are in and with restrictions to travel with visitors on site, yes, remote option is available for START, although sites going in for the very first audit as a remote assessment would need to undertake a concession. So it's not the site essentially, but the certification body will get in touch with us and there will be a concession issued around that. But yeah, absolutely, definitely possible. And it is something that a lot of sites are considering currently.
And I think it's something that we're going to have to manage as a community ongoing into the future, really, until we're all in a better position. So let's watch this space, because I'm sure things will change again.
Absolutely.
Okay. Next question. A question, which is a very sort of, a question for both of you. If you fail an audit, so if a member fails an audit, what happens next? So is this something that, Richa, could you have a look at that? Or is that something that you think a certification body is better placed to respond to?
Yeah, no, by all means, in terms of when a member fails, hopefully we shouldn't call it a failure. It's just opportunities of improvement that have been provided by the certification body. So if there are areas that they need to build up upon, what the site needs to bear in mind is rather than rushing into the next audit, just take some time to build up the procedures and protocols and just strengthen the quality management and food safety management systems before going into the next audit. But if you've had a negative outcome, essentially, then there are some protocols built into the standard. Comply to that. You cannot have an audit at least sort of like before a set period of time. And as soon as that time's over, you can go into the audit. So yeah, there's no negative sort of penalties associated with having a negative audit, essentially. It's as and when you're ready, you can go in for the next one.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Rita. Bonnie, any comments from you, from SALSA?
No, other than to say, similar to Richa, that there are no sort of negative penalties. We do have businesses who don't pass their audit, but what we tend to do is to convert that to a pre-audit. So when it becomes clear that a business is not going to meet the standard, we carry on through the audit. And then the business has a plan for what they need to do, what they need to implement, so they're ready the next time.
I think Bonnie and Richa, what is interesting, and the same for both standards, is if a company fails, if a member fails, if a business fails, they will have an indication of what they need to do to improve. So as Richa said, it's an opportunity for improvement, and it's an opportunity to make your systems more robust. So at the next audit, then it won't be a fail as such, as the question asked. The question person asked us about. So I think making sure that the business knows why they failed. So the non-conformities have to be really clear, and the actions to improve need to be very clear for those businesses to ensure that they have a successful outcome the next time. Next question. This is one for Richa. Richa, has BRCGS issued any interpretation guidelines for the START standard?
Short answer, no. But there's a reason behind it. So the reason why START is structured the way it is, so clause numbers taken from the food standard, gaps left as they are, is to get sites familiar with the BRCGS auditing process. And we have a full-fledged, very detailed interpretation guideline for our food standard. So what we encourage START sites to do is go in and refer to the interpretation guide for the food standard. As soon as a business signs up for the audit, they have access to BRCGS Participate platform. That is the platform that has a lot of information, a lot of material. There's plenty of guidelines in addition to interpretation guideline that they have at their disposal. Use as they may need it be. If there is an issue with the understanding or interpretation of a certain clause, the BRCGS team is again available to answer those questions. There's an inquiry inbox you can send your comments to. But yeah, as I said, short answer, no, nothing specific to the START standard, but that's what the food standard interpretation guidelines there for.
Thank you, Richa. Bonnie, did you want to comment about the guidance for SALSA as well and how it works for SALSA?
Yeah, so as said, you can download a copy of the SALSA standard for free from the website. But when you join the scheme, you get access to the enhanced documentation. So that includes guidance notes for the SALSA standard, which take every requirement, expand on that a little bit further and give really sort of practical guidance and instruction on how to comply with that particular requirement. And then if you want to drill down even further, there are the library of what we call tools and tips that really expand each clause even further.
Thank you, Bonnie. I think we're going to take one final question. Any questions that we haven't managed to answer, we will review them offline and respond accordingly to that separately. But I'll take the last question is for both of you again. So once a business is certificated or accredited, how many years is that certificate valid for? Richa?
Yeah, so our certificate would be valid for a year. Now, again, just a subtle difference from the BRCGS standards is with the other standards, we have grades. With the START standard, we just have a pass or a fail, essentially. So if you pass the audit, your next audit would be due in a year.
Okay, Bonnie?
Yeah, we are the same. So SALSA is based on an annual audit and renewal cycle.
Okay, lovely. I can see in the chat that we have some people that want to have some discussions offline. So depending on what the questions or what the standard is that you are interested in, please can I encourage you to contact the scheme owner, and you can do that via their website, and I'm sure they'll be happy to chat through any aspect of this after the presentation has concluded. So finally, I would like to thank you all for your questions. Thank you all for your attention today. I'd like to thank both Bonnie, Richa and the team at BRCGS for their contributions and their participation in today's session, and invite you all to our next session, which is I will be discussing the practical tools that you will need to support you through the journey SALSA, BRCGS Star, SALSA, BRCGS Star Intermediate, etc. The next session will be on Thursday, February the 11th. You can find us on social media, on different platforms. Please register. Please, obviously, come on with lots of questions again, and hopefully you will find it informative, and it will help you decide which direction to go in for your business. So thank you, Richa. Thank you, Bonnie. And without further ado, I'm going to close the session and look forward to seeing you on the 11th of February. Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.